That's a great question. If you guys ever get the chance to get him on your show, I would recommend getting Bill Marler from Marler Clark on your show. He has a top 10 list of foods he will not eat, and I agree with him on a lot of those foods.
Welcome to another great episode of Dre and Smiley, The Inner Circle.
Great. I am super stoked because I'm always super happy. People who are in my space, they just have a certain affinity and I just have a certain joy when they come on our podcast. As a lot of our listeners know, I've been in the food space for the past 5, 6 years, working with slaughterhouses, dairy companies, ready to eat companies, over 2,000 manufacturing plants around the country. So I'm excited to have Bryan Armentrout on. Let me read a little bit. Bryan is former 20-year quality assurance and food safety leader for food companies in the dairy, consumer packaged goods, and beverage space. He's the founder of the Food Leadership Group, a consulting firm based in Loveland, Colorado, helping food companies understand risks and optimize their processes. Bryan, welcome to the podcast and tell us, what is food safety?
Great question. And thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk about what is our passion and what we love doing. And really, Smiley, it comes down to what we do in this space. And I'm always reminded about my mom. My mom loved coffee, just like I do. And my mom was having coffee one day. And I was trying to explain to her what I do in this space because it's not like a business major or something like that where you go to college. And I said, really, mom, there's two things I do with quality assurance and food safety. And the first thing I do is I make sure that that food that you're eating is wonderful and that you enjoy it and that that coffee has that aroma and that flavor and it's not too bitter. And you add the half and half and it comes up and it blooms in the cup and you can see her just going, oh yeah, she has an expectation for the quality of that product, just like we all do. And I said, there's a second more important thing that I do. And she said, well, what's that? And I said, I make sure that that coffee doesn't kill you. And then she went, oh, okay. And after that, she did it.
That's pretty serious. You know what? You're right. If people don't realize, I told my friends, and even people when I meet while traveling, when you sit down at any sort of restaurant, whether it's a Starbucks or it's a food place, any restaurant, and you have a confidence that you can eat, pay for your meal, and not get sick. That's because of the heroes like ourselves. That's because there's armies of food safety professionals maintaining the food supply is safe for everyone. So tell me, Bryan, how did you as a kid say, you know what? I'm a foodie. I want to get into food safety, or how did you end up in food safety?
Yeah, it's the journey I think everyone takes on life always ends you up where you don't expect. And when I was in college, I was pre-med and started looking at how much more college and education I would need. I'm like, I'm getting kind of tired of this. What can I do? And I ended up coming down to Colorado. I was in Wyoming and ended up working for a food company, Leprino Foods. They make lots of mozzarella cheese. So if you're eating a pizza, odds are it's Leprino mozzarella cheese that's on that pizza. And I started off as a microbiologist working for them, and that it kind of went from there.
Interesting, interesting. So, when I think about the world of food safety, a couple things come to mind. It's so vast, right? And so, what would you say to someone who has concerns where, some people say that, there isn't as much attention given to the quality of the foods we eat, as there once was in the past, some might say, or as much as there just should be generally. What would you say to that?
Well, Dre, are you thinking about this from the perspective of a consumer or
Yes.
from a yes, and that's an important thing, and it's one of the biggest challenges in this space, and Smiley referenced this as well, is that trust. We all trust that when we go to that restaurant that they're doing the right thing. If you have an allergic reaction, that they're going to be respectful of that and make sure that they don't make you sick. But as we see in the food industry, especially within this last year, there have been some very, very high profile cases of food safety. Lunch meat. Now we're going through a big issue with infant formula. And when I talk with people, there was a young man who was talking with me about doing some work, and he was in his early 20s. And I said, have you heard about this big deli meat thing going on? And he knew about it. I mean, think about ourselves in our early 20s. We weren't paying attention to that stuff, but he knew about that recall. It's becoming, with all the information that's out there, all this access that we have, people are getting a better awareness of what's going on with the food supply, and they're paying attention now, which puts even more pressure on us to do the right thing in manufacturing.
And so for those that are paying such keen attention, you can't help but become somewhat of an alarmist if you're not careful. So what would you say to those, in terms of, giving something to us that'll settle us down? For example, I have a friend of mine who will not eat beef. He won't eat chicken. Essentially, he's a vegetarian because he feels like, with everything that he's seeing in the media today and things like that, he has concerns about the quality of the food that we're actually receiving. So he just eats, plant-based things. So what would you say to someone like him to say, listen, it's not as bad as it seems, but things are actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think this is something, as consumers of all this information that we have out there now, that we're figuring out, is that not everything that we read is true. A lot of times people have agendas. And what I would talk with people about on that side, Dre, would be like, these groups that are out there criticizing food in particular areas, why? Why are they doing that? A lot of times they're doing that because they want to scare people so that they sign up for their newsletter, or they get their membership, or they join their organization. They're doing it for a monetary reason, and they're scaring people to do that. And that's not right. And so, just like I think everything else in the world right now, we have to be very careful about that information that we're bringing in, and making sure that it's real. One of the rules I follow with all types of news out there now is, if there's something I read on the news and I'm just like, oh my God, it really scares me.
Mhm,
Okay, wait 24 hours or so, and see if that's really true, because
mhm,
people are much more motivated by that click than they are of telling you the truth.
mhm. Yeah, I can appreciate that. Something I always try to be mindful of is considering the source, right? And sometimes you have to receive your data from a different source. If you're constantly going to that one data source, you're always going to have that skewed view or idea or thought of whatever it is you're trying to analyze or assess. So that makes sense to me. Consider the source. Consider the source. What's behind that? So
Yes.
I appreciate you sharing that. Let me ask you this, and I'll send it over to Smiley. So, as a consumer, what are some common sense things, Brian, I can do? When I go into the store, I can look and say, "Oh yeah, this is good. That's good. This is fine. That's fine. Don't worry about this. Stay away from that. If you see this, stay away from that type of thing." What are some of those common sense things you'd suggest?
Well, that's a great question. If you guys ever get the chance to get him on your show, I would recommend getting Bill Marler from Marler Clark on your show.
Okay.
He has a top 10 list of foods he will not eat, and I agree with him on a lot of those foods. Um, Foods I avoid. I won't buy fresh cut fruit. You go into the deli, and they have those little bowls full of the watermelon and cantaloupe and whatever in these bowls. No, no, stay away from those. Way too many opportunities for contamination with those. Um, Deli meat, cut deli meat where they're pre-cutting it in the deli and doing that. Um, just look behind the counter. Who's running that slicing equipment back there, right? It's 20-year-old kids, if that. Do they know how to clean that equipment? How long has it been since that equipment has been cleaned? So as a general rule, I'll avoid those two things. Um, a lot of people will avoid, I'm kind of on the fence on this one, Drake, is bagged lettuce, where you have like the little lettuce kits with the pre-cut lettuce and all the stuff. You can make a nice little salad with that. Anytime with food, you're increasing the surface area, you're also increasing the opportunities for contamination. So why is hamburger more contamination prone than a steak? Well, because you're grinding it all up and you're mixing everything up. Um, there's all other little weird ones that I track. Um, for whatever reason, so you guys know those like enoki mushrooms. They're like a long spindly mushroom with those little tiny caps. Tons of recalls for those for listeria. I I, I will never, if you take one thing away from our talk today, never eat enoki mushrooms. Stay away from them. Oh,
Makes sense. That's
So,
fair. Appreciate that.
I'm so glad you touched upon the recall, because last year or 2 years ago, our industry suffered a great tragedy when Boar's Head killed 70 plus people died from Boar's Head. And if you get a chance, I nerd out on this stuff. So I went out and read the actual CAPA report on the FDA site. So this is public information. And just like you mentioned, Brian, there were sanitation problems all over. The slicer had mold in it. They weren't cleaning properly. So just using that as an example, as an umbrella statement, when you look at companies and you do your consulting, what would you say is the top three challenges you find in these food facilities? Is it sanitation control? Is it environmental controls? Is it just food prep control or pest control? Out of those programs in the manufacturing plant, what would you say is the most common you find that companies fail? Because we have a younger population coming in. And uh, I'll let you answer that, but I was debating someone on the plane about Boar's Head. I said, when you read that, they started having, they've been around 100 years. They didn't start having problems. 2021 was the first nonconformance. And I said, in my mind, as Smiley deduction, that long term food safety expert who's been there retired. They brought in someone with less skill. They didn't pay them what they were worth, and they just lowballed it to cut costs. And then they have all these deaths from it. That's my deduction from reading the CAPA report. But what would you say are the top three you find from a consulting perspective?
Yeah, and what's interesting in the Boar's Head case as well is so after all of this happened, Smiley, then they hired a chief food safety officer for the company. After the fact, after they killed people, after they damaged the reputation of their company for decades to come. Why? Why does this happen? I think a big piece of this is, and I think this kind of ties in the overall arching theme associated with this, is it's psychological. It's lack of awareness. So as consultants, we will often go into plants and look at things. And we'll start walking through and our heads are on swivels, right? We're doing this. We're looking around, we're looking at everything. We're like, what's that smell? What's that over there? And you'll point something out and they'll go, "Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we were going to fix that a few months ago and we didn't get around to that." Human beings tune things out. And we think that when we're sitting in a conversation like this, or we're driving down the road or whatever, that our field of vision is everything that we see. It's not, right? We don't have the mental processing power to take in everything that we see as humans. We are constantly, there's a little dot that's always moving around, which is our focus. And that's all we really see. We've seen these videos on YouTube of the girl who's dancing, and then at the end of the video, they'll say, "Okay, what did you notice about that video?" Then they'll say, "Did you notice the guy in the gorilla suit dancing behind?" And you rewatch the video, and sure enough, there's a gorilla back there dancing. You completely block it out because you're focused on the girl. And I think that's a big part of it, is that we don't we it's not that we're just trying not to see, it's just that we've blocked things out because we get into our routines. And we see this phrase all the time. I'm sure you hear this too, Smiley, is you'll ask a question. You say, "Well, why aren't you doing this? Why didn't Boar's Head do this?" "Well, we never had a problem before." What does that really mean when somebody says that? So you're taking the luck that you had in the past and you're saying that that is going to guarantee a good future? No. Every time this happens in a large company, they're always what? They're surprised. "Oh my goodness, how did this happen?" What? And then they wake up. And I think more importantly than any one particular program within an organization, and to your point, all those things that you listed, people have problems in those, is it's the mentality of how the company is approaching those things and how they're managing in that. And we're seeing talk now around this term food safety culture. What does that even
Mhm.
mean? What
Yeah.
does that mean? How does that translate? And that's what I think a lot of food companies are struggling with right now.
I'm so glad you mentioned food safety culture because a couple months ago in Indiana, I was Chicago was a food safety seminar. There's 800 people, and I'm up on stage speaking to everyone. And I was saying, "How do you define your culture?" And it seemed like it should be an easy question, but it's not because people don't know how to define that food safety culture, which says the operator, the maintenance guy, the pest control, everyone has an impact on the safety of the food, but they don't see it as their job. That's quality's job, or that's the maintenance job, or that's environmental job. But no, it's everyone's job. It's everyone should be able to stop the line if something is not is awry because of safety concerns. And until it starts from the top, I think that's a big challenge. But
100%. 100%.
How do you differentiate between the 2, between compliance and culture?
So for me, that's a fantastic question.
Great question.
Compliance is a checklist, right? It's did you do this? Check, 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 check. Culture is, are you doing the right thing? And so as a seasoned professional, Smiley, I can guarantee, just like me, if you walk into a plant, if you walk out on the floor, and you know where I'm going with this, within 5 you know if they have a good culture or not, don't you?
Immediately, it's here's one, Dre. I'll tell you this. Let's say you're walking through your house and something's on the floor. You may walk past it one time. The second time, you're gonna pick it up and throw it away. Then you go to other people, other you may have kids like I had them. They'll walk past something on the floor 12 times and they won't pick it up because that's culture. Because you're like, oh, I saw it there. Let me just pick it up and just do something that's not my job description, but it's going to be the better good of the organization. And that's where it starts with every person.
So then how do you using your organization, the Food Leadership Group, I imagine this is where they would bring you in, right? To say, "Hey, we have poor compliance, poor culture." When you hear that, where do you start? Do you start with saying, "Okay, listen, focus on your culture and that will create the compliance," or do you start at the opposite?
Well,
How do
I
you
I I think I think the checklist mentality is where we have been for a long time, and what we're figuring out is that is not working. The thought process has been, Dre, is that if we just have the right checklist, if we just come up with the right series of audit questions or whatever, that all of a sudden recalls will go down. Well, it hasn't worked so far. What I focus on in my business is opposite of that. I focus on the people side of things because, to Smiley's point, it's the people who manage food safety, the entire team. So one of the things that I do a risk assessment process when I go into companies, and I do something that most people don't do. I talk to people at corporate. Right? All of our effort is always focused on the plants, but nobody ever talks to corporate. What if the head of procurement is buying substandard ingredients because he gets a nice bonus at the end of the year for cutting costs in the company, and the plant has to deal with that bad product? Is that a plant problem? Is a checklist ever going to fix that? No, it's not. I will sit
exactly.
down with the heads of all these different departments that impact food safety and quality. So procurement, operations, R&D, legal, communications, the CEO of the company, and say, talk to me about how you talk about food safety in your company. And to Smiley's point, if the answer comes back, well, that's not my job. That's why we have a quality department. Huge problem. Huge problem.
Makes
Yeah,
sense,
Jerry,
makes sense.
I used to think of it like this. Sometimes people are like, well, whose job is it to, if there's here, I give you an example of what we did to this one plant. One of the plant managers told me to get beyond the checklist because people can pencil whip. A lot of plants are still on paper and they'll just say, yeah, if you go to a plant, a lot of the drainage, sewage drains has a lot of bacteria in there and a lot of microbiological problems. So what he would do is hide a rubber ducky in one of the plants. There's 50 plants. I mean, 50 drainages. He hide it and say, okay, when you do your checklist, identify where the duck is. Because that way you know that they're not pencil whipping or making up the checklist, just checking the box to say that they've done it. And that was a way for them to turn it into a game, but he knew who was lying because when you're doing that, it has severe ramifications if something gets out of the plant onto the trucks and it's contaminated. You got to bring it back. People can get sick. People can die. So I always said my question I would say to someone when I had the E team involved is, well, whose job is it for maintenance? Whose job is it for sanitation? Whose job is it? You see the little something scurrying around the plant. Oh, that's pest control. Oh, no, it's everyone. The answer is it's all of our jobs. We have so many eyes. If you see something, say something. That's where culture starts, is with everyone believing that this is our product, this is our plant, and this is our reputation on the line if someone dies from our product or gets to run from it. So I think, like Brian said, I nerd out on this, Brian. So I'm 1,000% behind. It's the people. It's always the people, and you can't define a culture on a checklist. Just like if you ever played sports or you ever been in a company and you had a good culture, it starts at the top. But then when that executive comes in and the culture's terrible, they know they're the one that did it because it starts at the top with that vision. Would you agree,
I mean,
Brian?
that makes sense, yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things, guys, that I always used to tell whenever I had a chance to talk to the plant workers or do like a group presentation, I would always say this. I would say if I can't go out to your production line and pull a piece of product off of that line and go and feed it that evening to my children and grandchildren without a second thought, I need to know that. And you need to know that. And if that's the case, we need to fix that today.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So I think I kind of we missed the step. I talked about the food leadership group. Tell me about that. How did it get started? What was the catalyst to getting it started? What the whole idea is behind it?
Well, I would say, Dre, that it started because of the grace of my wife.
Ah,
So yeah, I've been running quality assurance in large CPG companies for over 20 years, and I was in an organization that was bought out. The new company, I was kind of like, and so 8 years ago or so, I was like, well, maybe I should try this consulting thing. Um, Part of the challenge of working in a company is like kind of what we're talking about today is you can have all kinds of great ideas, but generally they stay bottled up in that company. You may get to talk about them in generic terms at a conference, but most of what you learn stays in that company. But if you're a consultant, you can share that with everyone and really spread that message of food safety and helping other companies who don't know what they don't know. So 8 years ago, I approached my wife and said, "Hey, listen, this is kind of a risky thing, but I'm thinking I want to become a consultant." And she was okay with it, and she said, "Yeah, go for it. Let's do this." And so I thank her for that.
that's great. That's great. And so the company is how old, and who are your clients typically?
Yeah, so we've been around for 8 years now, and, like, my office here it's always funny because people are always like, they think this is a fake background. Nope, that's real. That's real. Um, oh,
It's
by the
so
way, this
clean. That's why.
yeah, by the way, this little dude back here was it, so this week, the Chinese Lunar Year change, and so this is the
Yeah.
year of the horse now. So,
Yeah.
my nephew put together a little Lego horse thing for me, so that was kinda cool.
Nice. I love
Um
it. Love it.
So, yeah, so with the food leadership group, we focus on FDA regulated companies, generally stay out of the USDA space. Um, and yeah, I mean, so we touch all kinds of different industries. I also work in dietary supplements and medical food. I mean, those are really closely related. Um, but in reality, it's kind of funny when you think about it, and I have yet to find an example where this isn't true for these companies, is there's really only 4 steps, Dre, to making something. It's receiving, processing, packaging, and shipping. Right? You bring some ingredients in, you do some stuff to it, you package it up, and you send it out to the consumer. I call that the core process, and every company has that. And if that process doesn't work, you don't make money and nobody keeps their job. So it's very important to identify that and then figure out how do you support that. So I help companies understand that and say, okay, how does the quality group support this? And to Smiley's point, all these other groups, maintenance and engineering and HR and all these things, how do they make sure that that process works correctly and that we make awesome?
So that begs the question, when you think about the supply chain, well, it's kind of, volatile right now. What sort of suggestions, questions are you receiving, and how are you problem solving what's going on in the supply chain with about how volatile it is right now?
Yeah. So this kind of goes back to an old saying from President Reagan back during the Cold War, where I'm sure Smiley remembers this too, is trust but verify. And so that was our agreement with the Soviet Union was, "Okay, yeah, we'll trust you, but we're also gonna verify you're doing what you're saying." And I think that really translates over to supplier control. When I was with White Lake running quality there, we had a big project with Dean Foods, and we went through Dre, and we identified all of the different things that we purchased in that company. It ended up being over 6,000 different items. 6,000. And you can't audit all of those. You can't, so what we did is we identified it down to the top 10% of the riskiest things. And a lot of those ended up being ice cream variegates. So what's that? With ice cream, you make the base, you make the ice cream mix, and you pasteurize it, and it's sterilized, well, not sterilized, but it's clean. And then you add all kinds of other crap into the ice cream afterwards, don't you? Fudge and gummy bears and cookies and who knows what. You're completely reliant upon your supplier for the safety of that product. You need to keep a very close eye on those guys. So what I counsel companies is there's two main buckets is high risk ingredients and high volume ingredients. You need to keep very close eye on those. And simply accepting their paperwork is not enough. You need to be able to understand that. This gets back to the risk that procurement can introduce into the company. Non-fat dry milk is not non-fat dry milk. If you're by heart and you're producing infant formula and you're buying from a company that has contaminated non-fat dry milk, you're this is what happened with these guys. And now all these little babies are sick because of this. You need to understand the context and the risk. And materials are linked to risk, but that is the not the only element. Who are you actually buying this stuff from? I also work a lot with beverage companies and like doing, different plant-based products and things like this. And in a lot of different beverages, one of the key ingredients in there is sunflower oil. Well, what we found out was, where does sunflower oil come from? Almost all the world's supply comes from Ukraine.
Oh, no.
Now you got a big problem. And
Yeah.
now you're trying to find sunflower oil from anywhere to make your product. Your risk has just gone up significantly because you don't know who you're buying from. It's kind of like the analogy I used. It's like those old shows from the 70s and 80s where you're walking down the street in New York City and you got the guy in the alleyway with the trench coat. He opens it up and he's got some
Yeah.
watches. Right? Hey, you
Yeah,
want to buy
yeah,
one?
yeah.
That ain't no Rolex.
That's right. That's right.
It's the same thing. Who
Yeah.
are you buying from? And I think a lot of times food safety people don't understand that that is a huge component of the risk with that material. We need to do a much better job in that.
Yeah, we used to say, or I used to say, if you can prevent the problem before it gets in the plant, you're 98% of the battle. Because all these things coming into your plant, it's almost like the Dre when you say, I'm not letting everybody into my house because I don't want their energy. I don't want what they're tracking into my house. But if you treat your plant with that same sort of security and these suppliers, how am I going to reduce the risk of bringing bad materials into my plant before I start processing it? Because once it starts processing, it's in my equipment, it's in my other products. It may get into multiple beverages or multiple wherever it's going to go, like an inverted tree. But man, that's fascinating. So, Brian, when you speak to clients, let's say small or large, what is the biggest challenge that you find that they fail to embrace? Is it food safety culture? Is it food defense culture? Is it just adhering to the FDA? You mentioned you're doing medical foods as well. So is that validation 21 CFR Part 11 versus regular food, SQF, safe food quality? Or what do you find it's there, or BRC? What are you finding are their biggest challenges? It's like really stumping the executives that you say, well, you know what? We need more time to just help you understand the clarity and the importance and the impact of what you're really doing so you can get a positive outcome.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to circle back to what you said earlier. Is these other organizations within the company don't understand how they impact food safety. They think it's quality's job. They think it's our job to manage food safety. And if something happens and goes wrong, who gets to blame? Yeah. Oh, we had a quality problem. No, the company had a product problem. And it's teaching that message, Smiley. I think that's the important thing. And it's what we need to focus on and what we do. We are technical people. We need to translate that technical information so that senior management understands it, so that they understand how it impacts the business, how these recalls can damage the brand reputation, and how we protect the company. And they need to understand how that rolls into their job. One of the things that I always want companies to do, and I see this very rarely, is I expect to see in the objectives for the senior leadership team and anybody who impacts food safety, I want to see recalls as a key criteria in their bonus structure. Because if the company has a recall, everyone suffers. And they need to understand that they have a direct impact on whether the company fails at food safety and quality. They are doing this and they are responsible for it. And I think if I was to wave a magic wand and improve something for food safety countrywide, that's where I would start.
Prior to me moving into food, I was doing pharmaceutical and medical device. And I was telling my food colleagues in life sciences, we have something called the Park Doctrine, which says if something goes awry, the CEO is held liable. If you create a drug and someone dies, the CEO is sitting in front of the lawyers, not the quality, it's the CEO. In food and chemicals, you always see a chemical plant blows up and they blame the little operator or they blame, no, it should be the CEO. If the executive team had the Park Doctrine in food, I wholeheartedly believe the recalls would drop significantly because they have a fiduciary and a legal obligation to make sure this product is good, like we have in pharma. But they don't
Yes.
have the Park Doctrine. Are you familiar with that, or you think that's
Well,
overkill for
absolutely. Yeah.
food?
So I think part of it is that, and you're 100% right. And the Park Doctrine has been instituted in the food industry in very limited fashion. It's only been used a couple of times. It's been used with Peanut Corporation of America, but- and it's been used with Bluebell ice cream. And so Mr. Cruz, the former CEO of Bluebell Ice Cream, was personally indicted by the DOJ, and he reached a settlement around that. I think he had to pay $100,000, where he was personally prosecuted for those recalls and deaths with that ice cream. I think from a legal standpoint, uh, FDA and the DOJ need to use this tool more because it does exist.
Okay, makes sense. So, as we move forward here, one obvious question is technology, AI. How are you currently, or do you see AI being leveraged in food safety?
So on my last chat, we were just talking about this very topic. And so one of the things in the food industry that we're very good at is gathering lots of data, data,
Mhm.
just stacks of data. But we can't translate that into usable information. We need to be able to do that. And so part of that is what I would always teach my quality managers, Dre, is your job in the plant is not to be a firefighter. Your job is not to run around and save the day and get the product out. Your job is to think. Your job is to spend a significant portion of your day saying, why did this happen? Or what can I do, to Smiley's point, what can I do to keep this from happening? That's the more important thing. And how can I then use AI to control those things that I don't have time to manage? So one of the biggest problems in food plants, hand washing, right? People are terrible, terrible at washing their hands. As the quality manager, do I have time to stand there all day with my arms crossed and nagging people to wash their hands? No, I don't. How can I automate that? How can I use AI to monitor this process? How can I use AI to look at traffic patterns within the plant? How can I look at AI to look at procurement and all these there's just a myriad of different tools out there that we can use that are coming down the pike to make our lives much more effective. But we need to use that time then to make the plant better. The last thing that we need to do in quality, and I see this too much, is we report on what happened. Okay, fine. The quality report came out for last month. That's nice. What are you doing with that information to make the plant better next month? Hey, plant manager, complaints are kind of going up. We're seeing some complaints in this category. We need to put together a team to figure out what's going on before it continues going up. Provide value to the organization. Just don't report on what happened and wagging your finger at everybody. Be a part of the team.
Makes sense. That will increase or improve the culture, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So talk to me about the book. You have a new book out. I believe it's called the new manager mindset.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me about that.
So I wrote this book with a very particular idea in mind. Is that I'm sure you guys went through this too. If you're good at doing something, there's a point in your life where someone taps you on the shoulder and says, "Congratulations, Dre. You're doing a fantastic job. But now you've been promoted to department manager." Right? And they plop you down at a desk. They give you a computer, and then they leave. And you're like, what do I do now? Right? They don't send you to class. You're on your own and it's sink or swim. And a lot of times your friends and your coworkers, you now have to manage and they're looking at you like, well, aren't you something now, Mr. Fancy Pants? And what I did with this book is this was my attempt to, within 4 different sections in the book, teach those new managers lessons that I learned along the way that will hopefully make it easier for them when they transition to that leadership.
Nice. So where can our viewers and listeners purchase this book?
Yes, it's available on Amazon, and so you just have to look up, the name of the book and my name, and it should pop up. It's available in softcover. It's also available as, a Audible book as well too, so you can listen to it in your car on the way to work and all that fun stuff. So it's on Amazon.
So this book isn't just for food people, it's just for managers, anybody, any
Yep,
manager.
so yeah, this applies to any industry.
Awesome, awesome. And just again for the viewers and listeners, the name of the book again is The New Manager Mindset. And then
Yep, here,
also,
I'll
I
do
believe you have yeah. If you can hold it up, that'd be great. Yeah, yeah, I
Oops,
love it.
straight there we go.
Nice, nice. And
Here we
you
go.
also
So you
have
can
a there you go, there you go. And then you also have a chat group. Is that right?
yes,
Tell me
on
about
so I
that.
also do so up here, let's see, it's always weird when it's reverse. There we go, over there. So on LinkedIn on Fridays, the Food Safety Chat Live, I live stream at 8 AM Mountain Time, 10 AM Eastern. I bring a guest on the show just like this, and we talk about all things food safety. So I've been doing that now for about 5.5 years.
5.5 years. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So with that, we'll switch over to the final four. So, first question for you.
Yeah.
What's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Biggest risk. I I really think it was starting my business. That was the biggest risk. Um, I think it was the biggest risk, and I didn't know it at the time until I actually jumped in. Because if you work in a company and you have a specialized knowledge, you're comfortable in your little area. And once you have your own business, you realize just how stupid you are. And so I didn't know anything about marketing or sales or accounting or all of these other things you need to do to have a successful business. And that learning curve was very steep. So that was a big risk figuring out.
Okay.
Oh, 8 years in, would you do it over again? Or would you say, oh man, if I could have cut bait and gone back, I'd have gone back. What would you say?
No, it's been very valuable and rewarding being able to share my knowledge and talk with people. I've really enjoyed it. I would do it again.
Awesome. Here's the second final four question. Live or dead, who would you want to have 24 hours with and why?
Um, so one of my heroes is Ayn Rand. I would love
Mhm.
Ah,
to sit down with Ayn Rand and have a
all right.
conversation with her.
Yeah.
Probably
And
one of the
why?
most important thinkers of the last 100 years.
Okay.
So Atlas
Right.
Shrugged, right? She wrote
Yeah.
Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Okay. And
right. That's right.
all right, I remember.
What's something you wish you were better at, Brian?
Socializing. I'm a very introverted person, and if you're an introvert, things like this are fine, right? You can go out and give speeches and presentations, but I'm terrible, terrible. I will avoid like the plague any type of a social situation. Hey, you want to come to us for a party? Oh, no, no, I don't.
Right.
So I wish I was better at that.
So the last question on the final four is what is something that never fails to make you laugh? I mean, just tears,
So this is something I torture my guests with on the food safety chat is dad jokes.
bad jokes.
Ah. So now you got to hit us with one. You gotta
Yeah.
All right, you guys ready? All right. So
yeah.
it's a little out of season, but this is a good one. Um, how did Darth Vader know what Luke got him for Christmas?
Oh.
Oh no, that's a good one.
He felt its presence.
Yeah.
Ah, I love it.
Right, right. He felt the presence.
I love it.
Man, this has been amazing, Brian. Like I said, I nerd out all the time when I get food safety people here because food, pharmaceutical, medical, all this quality, safety, regulatory, it's just I just nerd out on that stuff. And so thank you for sharing your time and your book with us on the Dre and Smiley Inner Circle podcast.
I had a blast. This has been a fantastic time. Thank you very much.
All right. Appreciate it.